This seating is resumed. I recognize the Honorable Shakeem Howell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Permit me, Madam Speaker, to start by saying, sorrows, sorrows, spurs. Madam Speaker, it is sad, a sad, sad, sad day for this nation. My heart is grieving, Madam Speaker, but let me start by addressing the elephant in the house, the epidemic of mental ill health in this nation. Madam Speaker, my honorable members on the other side of this aisle clearly have never been impacted by such instances of mental ill health, but only brought a resolution, Madam Speaker, reflective of mental health. Madam Speaker, we need to really look at the concept of mental health and mental ill health. Several of the resolutions presented here today look at mental health, but don't look at the rehabilitative process of bringing persons who have already reached the stage of breaking back into society. And I would like to bring a quote to you, Madam Speaker, from Henrietta Ford, Executive Director of UNICEF, who states, "Too many children and young people, rich and poor alike, in all four corners of the world are experiencing mental ill health, and we have never seen before. This is the silent emergency of our times, and has no borders or requires urgent attention." End of quote. According to UNICEF, for every child in November 2019, and I quote, up to 20% of adolescents globally experience mental disorders. 3 out of 4 adult mental health problems begin during childhood and adolescence, and an alarming proportion of adolescents, 5 to 10%, and in some cases in other countries, 15%, and low and middle income countries attempt suicide. Now, Madam Speaker, my colleagues that spoke before me, especially the leader of opposition, brought up the concept of suicides in this country. And Madam Speaker, it pains me to know that a young man in this country who I attended school with was a fortunate victim of that such instance as well. And Madam Speaker, we need to recognize that suicide prevention is something that is important and of paramount importance in this country. This team of individuals who come to form themselves as a government in the name of the young people of this country have clearly lacked the intelligent wit to go and do their necessary research to bring a substantive resolution to this House. Because, Madam Speaker, for the past 3 years, the Caribbean young people have been coming together to put together a call of action with 4 main calls, led by young people of Barbados in the movement of Let's Unpack It, led by Dr. David Johnson in the making. God will decree and declare that he will get his doctorate, and Chelsea Jordan. These young people, Madam Speaker, had foresight, had vision, had, as the good song frequently spoke about, really populist social commentarize.
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
But before this pandemic struck, causing these twisting and tossing and causing several anxieties among young people in this country, where you couldn't go outside, social distancing, everybody shutting up tight, distancing in the households even from your fellow man. Mothers can't communicate with children. Fathers can't communicate with wives. These were the breakdowns that we're seeing in households across the country. But what were these calls to action, Madam Speaker? The call number 1 went on to say leadership to prioritize the integration of mental health into existing health policies and emergency plans to ensure that youth are meaningfully engaged in policy development, Madam Speaker. Call number 2 went on to speak about research. And as I said, Madam Speaker, those on the other side do not know this word research. To inform mental health programs and policies, It is no way you can stand in this resolution at Coming G and talk about the promotion of already existing mental health initiatives, but still several members on the other side cannot get up and name a single one, because you know what, Madam Speaker, it shows me they do not know any. Call number 3 goes in to discuss the regulations and policies to protect children and youth from health-harming products, harassment, stigma, and discrimination. Stigma and discrimination is the one thing that I can stand behind of this resolution, as we're seeking to change the mindsets of Barbadians towards this concept of mental health and being able to support one another along this journey, because I was always told that you're only as strong as your weakest link. And call number 4 went on to speak about services to support the mental health and well-being of children and youth across the Caribbean. Madam Speaker, while we are debating in our house here in Barbados,
Honorable Member, your time is up.
it would be remiss of me, just a couple more minutes to wrap up, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
A couple more minutes. I'll give you 30 seconds.
Yes, please, Madam Speaker. It would be remiss of me, Madam Speaker, to say that this mental health situation is just an epidemic in Barbados, but it's an epidemic throughout the Caribbean. And it's important that as young people we come together and band together to fight for the legislative authorities to fix and urgently take swift action, the same way how we thought it necessary to establish the Barbados Family Planning Association. Madam Speaker, I do oblige.
I now recognize the Honorable Member Janika King. Apologies. I now recognize the Honorable Member Raymond Small.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon to all honorable members of the House. From all of the previous speeches that members of the House would have contributed, you can understand how important this topic is for us. Now, I am especially glad to be here today because I feel as though I can finally express my views on this topic, mental health. This is a topic that I've always, well, for the last few years, I took an interest in because during the COVID pandemic, I noticed a lot of my friends and families I noticed these moods and behavioral changes, and I understood that the pandemic impacted everyone significantly, but curiosity led me to research how it mentally affected us. Mental health challenges can affect anyone, young or old, rich or poor. And as a young man, today I want to express my concerns for the elderly people of Barbados. It goes without saying that the elderly people have the most experience in life. And this means that they would have gone through the ups and downs, and in most cases, worked almost their whole lives. And I know life is not easy. Between working every day, trying hard to make ends meet, having a child or children that you have to take care of, and along the lines, losing friends and family members, not to mention the financial struggles, it is hard. Life is hard generally. Now imagine experiencing these struggles for 40, 50, 60 years. And this is why I consider, or I see the elderly people as heroes. Because while most of them might not have fought in wars, they did have to battle the struggles of life. And they are still going. They are still going. Now, I love and respect all senior citizens. I have a grandmother who helped raise me into the young man that I am today.
Honorable Member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Thank you. And for that, I am forever grateful. And that is why I am here today, Madam Speaker, to shed light on point F in this resolution. We need to provide our senior citizens with more daycare facilities. We cannot forget about our senior citizens who live alone, the ones that have no one to share a laugh with or have a chat with about maybe the old days, and the ones with disabilities, no assistance with cooking and cleaning, and are constantly feeling alone in the household. Now, loneliness.
Honorable member, your time is up.
I would like to ask for just at least 30 more seconds or a minute to finish up and conclude.
30
Madam
seconds.
Madam Speaker, with the establishment of more adult daycares, we can provide more of our senior citizens safe, supportive communities and comforting social environments. Thank you. With that, I oblige.
I now recognize the honorable member, Kaylan Aline.
In Barbados, there's a serious psychologist shortage. Our psychiatric hospital, there are 3 clinical nurses having to see 70+ patients in one day, having to take a break, have lunch, properly complete their job, and be able to breathe through all of this. How are we saying that we're injecting this 10% into the psychiatric hospital? Sorry, Madam Speaker. Good morning, Madam Speaker. How are we saying that we're injecting this 10% into the psychiatric hospital and saying that it's not enough? Maybe if this government focused on the real issues, the overwork, the underpaid, the undertrained persons within said institution, instead of focusing on building a new building every time an older one begins to run down. Focus on that one nurse who is going home, too tired to do anything for their child, having to struggle at the end of every month because the cost of living in Barbados is too high. Focus on that one psychology major student who wants to come back home but they do not have the opportunity to do so. Also, how are we sending members of the Barbados Police Service to collect persons who have been mandated by the court to have an assessment at the psychiatric hospital when these persons within the BPS have the most basic training possible on how to deal with persons suffering with mental illnesses? And for the persons on the government side who decide to hide behind being labeled as the 3rd ranked at the recent SIDS conference for the most 3rd rank in the most mental health resources within the Caribbean, shame on you. In closing, mental health is a problem that basically everyone has suffered with at some point in time. And as Matt High said, mental health problems don't define who you are. They are something you experience. You walk in the rain and you feel the rain, but you are not the rain. Madam Speaker, I oblige.
I now recognize the honorable member, Tyrell Payne.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for your acknowledgement. Madam Speaker, I wish to begin my speech by emphasizing the point that no one should ever feel ashamed to talk about their mental health. And this is not the case in many situations. Madam Speaker, July 7th, July 21st, August 3rd, 2022, 3 days, 2 weeks apart from each other, in this Barbados, and this hurts me deeply to say this, in our Barbados, we lost 3 men to suicide. Madam Speaker, now more than ever, we're hearing more conversations about men and their mental health, and we understand that there is a fundamental issue that we need to address. Madam Speaker, mental health issues in men are caused by a number of issues, from family-related issues, financial stressors, and even the onset of physical illnesses. Madam Speaker, however, the issue comes when men suppress their emotions and they don't feel comfortable enough to speak out about their mental health issues and about the issues that they're facing. Because, Madam Speaker, of the stigma attached to it, society's expectations, and traditional gender roles. Madam Speaker, studies done all across the globe show that more significant proportion of females report common mental health issues when compared to men. In addition to that, Madam Speaker, these results show that men are more reluctant to seek help and to talk about their mental health challenges. I go on. A sex comparison study done in Canada, Madam Speaker, showed a great portion of male respondents compared to the female respondents that they would be embarrassed to seek help for their mental health challenges. Such results, Madam Speaker, would indicate to us that the stigma, whether self-stigma or societal stigma, contributes heavily to the way men see their mental health, to their mentality towards mental health. And such, this leads to trends where we see mental health illnesses are highly untreated in men. Madam Speaker, this stigma stems from centuries ago, where men were supposed to be the head of the household and the breadwinners, and they were supposed to be dominant and strong. And a sign of weakness, and an issue with their mental health would be a sign of weakness.
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Yes. As I proceed swiftly, Madam Speaker, the impact of untreated mental health in men is what is damaging our society today. Our society suffers on a whole as a result. These men turn to harmful methods to cope with their mental health, from substance abuse to personality changes, which they become more aggressive or agitated, and then lead to child abuse and spousal abuse in the house. Additionally, they may develop the onset of depression and anxiety, and then leading to attempts and thoughts of suicide. Madam Speaker, as I move on quickly, the government, we know our shortcomings, we know our deficits, and we are here to correct them. Our solutions are to recommend the design and implementation of more male-tailored, innovative, and creative initiatives that would improve the way men view their mental health. Additionally, we also want to promote the active organizations and initiatives that are already in place, some such as the Let's Unpack It that have been mentioned highly today, You Report Barbados, the Supreme Council for Personal Development, and the Men Empowerment Network support. Madam Speaker, in addition to that, we also seek to establish more safe spaces for men to create, collaborate, share, and support each other in a non-judgmental, stigma-free environment. As I conclude, Madam Speaker, with the understanding that men's mental health is just as important, as well as the trend where the global male suicide rate continues to rise, it is important that we acknowledge and prioritize men's mental health. The research and the literature presented is clear. Work needs to be done. As I would have stated earlier, we know our deficits and we've come to correct them. The first step is by seeking to end the negative stigma attached to men's mental health. That way, men become more comfortable expressing themselves in a healthy and sustainable way. In conclusion, together, let us build a space where we all feel safe talking about and sharing about our mental health challenges. The goal is mapped out. We must do our part to ensure the public is educated, and thus more awareness is brought. The more awareness is brought, the closer we get to the light at the end of the tunnel. Madam Speaker, I am obliged to you.
I recognize the Honorable Brianna Hardy.
Madam Speaker, honorable members, today I come to speak to you about a topic that's very near and dear to me, as I myself have suffered with mental health illnesses for many years. I've seen friends and family members, and I'm sure we can all take just one moment to think of one person impacted by a mental illness. Now, if every single one of us can think of one person, and I know we can, we should know how important mental health issues are in Barbados. This is why the issues of Barbados' limited mental health resources means it can't tackle the rising number of mental illnesses. It can't tackle the risk of poor mental health to the country's development and the other negatives accompanied by the resources. Thus, it is of utmost importance that we address these issues, that we put in place the necessary policies to ensure the stability of Barbados' mental health sector. Now, did the government read the Caribbean Youth Mental Health Call to Action? I mean, I heard all of us mention Let's Unpack It, but I'm reading the resolution, and where are the proposals targeting research? Where is the integration of mental health in already existing health policies? I mean, yes, mental health in its own right, in its own merit, can stand alone, but without that keyword health, it's just mental. No, how are we protecting the youth from harassment, stigma, and discrimination with these proposals? Now, Section E of the resolution brought by the government proposes the creation of more incentives for students studying psychiatry to improve psychiatrist-to-patient ratio. Now, in theory, this sounds like a brilliant solution to a large problem in the mental health sector, as the ideal minimum ratio, according to the American Psychiatrists Association, is 10 psychiatrists to 100,000 patients. And as of 2007, Barbados has 4 psychiatrists to 100,000 patients. Now, Madam Speaker, we're more than 50% below the bare minimum, Madam Speaker. Now, from a financial standpoint, it's not as simple as just putting in place more initiatives to get people in the psychiatry sector.
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
I'll land the plane, Madam Speaker. To put it into perspective, say the government decides to allocate what money? The money from the education sector that would take away from the subsidized education from others, or would they take the money that we've allocated 10% to mental health, which, by the way, as of the 2022 Atlas, 100% of this 10% goes toward the psychiatric hospital, which, by the way, is struggling with this 10%. So how are we allocating these funds? How are we paying for these policies and projects? How are we getting this done? I find the government has overlooked an integral aspect of mental health policies, finances, and it's disheartening, honestly. Now, as a country saddled with $7.19 billion in US debt, it's integral that we take into account how are we going to equitably allocate these finances? How are we going to ensure that everyone has equal access to education, to mental health resources? How are we going to do this with these policies that were presented today? We must do better with budget distribution. In closing, I urge the government to consider the reallocation of the finances, to look into the youth mental health call to action from the LUI that we of course, we stated, and to implement the pertinent policies needed to ensure stability.
Your time is up.
Madam Speaker, if I may, 30 more seconds to finish up. To implement the pertinent policies needed to ensure the stability of mental health sector. As policymakers, it is our duty to ensure the mental health of our citizens. Ignoring or implementing insufficient strategies will do nothing but a great disservice to our country and our moral obligation. In light of these arguments, I urge my esteemed colleagues to prioritize the development of mental health policies in Barbados. Madam Speaker, time for action is now. Let us be remembered as the leaders who recognize the importance and urgency of mental health issues and took necessary steps to address it. Madam Speaker, I'm obliged to you.
I now recognize the honorable member, Hayshawn Waldron.
Madam Speaker, distinguished guests, honorable members. Imagine a world where silent struggles hide behind masks of false smiles. Imagine a world where anxiety, depression, and eating disorders haunt youth, thus shackling dreams and aspirations. Unfortunately, there is no need to imagine. When exposed to high-pressure environments or extreme stressors such as societal pressure or perfectionism, oftentimes the drug of choice is comfort food. And we have seen the impact that this has had in Barbados. In 2022, the World Health Organization would have published an NCD progress report that stated, listen closely, 83% of preventable deaths in Barbados have been linked to NCDs. And while changing eating habits is one of the steps to combat NCDs, we now need to take a deeper look. We must now address the smoldering ember of devastation. We must now address the topic which is overshadowing why we do damage to our bodies. We must now address the decline of mental health and wellness in our nation. With the time that I am granted, I will discuss the rationale for the reformation of the Mental Health Act. So, we need to understand what is the problem. What is a modern Barbados? The last time the Mental Health Act was amended was in 1998. It has been 2 decades since then, and therefore there have been a number of natural, economic, and health disasters. And mental health is an important indicator of a society's overall well-being. In 2021, Barbados was subject to a research study titled Mental Health and COVID-19 Perceptions in the East Caribbean. And this study revealed that respondents generally experience mild social dysfunction. However, and more alarmingly, they suffered from severe anxiety and insomnia. Of the 500 respondents that were interviewed, listen closely, only 38% were in a healthy range of depression. They had a minimum level of depression. And only 16% showed minimum levels of anxiety and insomnia. Participants expressed feelings of fear and anxiety due to the pandemic and the associated stressors. And this is a problem because it causes impaired relationships, reduced economic income, and a continued strain on health services. So the solution is this. We need to shape the Mental Health Act to address the needs of a modern Barbados. And this calls for the inclusion of community-based care. Community-based care would enhance access to health services since persons would...
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Thank you. Community-based cares would enhance the access to health services since persons will no longer be constricted to only seeking mental health in an institution. This approach also assists in the promotion of integration and reduces stigma through awareness. And lastly, it would be a cost-effective method also aimed at reducing the strain that is placed on the psychiatrist-to-patient ratio. In wrapping up, while an administration body is key to getting these things done, it is important that we understand that in order to have any type of transformation, the community is key. We need to embrace and support these changes. We need to champion young health. We need to champion mental health as an integral part of overall well-being. Madam Speaker, I am obliged.
I now recognize the Honorable Abby Tanis.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Speaker, honorable members, specially invited guests. Now, as we know, the topic for this debate is mental health. What is mental health? Mental health is defined by the World Health Organization as a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, realize their abilities, learn well, and work well, and contribute to their community. Now I would like to read an extract of statistics from the Barbados Global School-Based Student Health Survey 2011. It says most adolescents have good mental health. However, physical, emotional, and social changes that occur during adolescence, coupled with exposure to poverty, physical and/or sexual violence, harsh parenting, and peer bullying can make adolescents vulnerable to mental health problems. Other risk factors that contribute to stress during adolescence include the quality of one's home life, relationships with peers, pressure to conform to peers, exploration of sexual and/or gender identity, and the negative impacts of social media. Some adolescents are subject to stigmatization, discrimination, and exclusion, and lack of access to quality support and mental health services. Parental and peer relationships are very important to adolescent mental health. Teenagers with friendship and close ties to their parents and guardians tend to be more adaptive to stress, report being happier due to increased feeling of uniqueness, and are likely to do better academically. In addition, they tend to have higher self-esteem and higher self-confidence and may be more assertive. In Barbados, only 6% of adolescents ages 13 to 15 reported that they have no close friends. And at the same time, only 30% of adolescents had parents and guardians who understood their problems and worries, and only 38% had parents and guardians who knew what they were doing in their free time. The glaring omission of this resolution is the failing identity to the root cause of mental health in the first place. Where in this resolution does it speak to supporting and understanding the importance of a positive adult role model in an adolescent's life? Where in this resolution does it speak to the importance of poverty or mental health, not just in the youth, but in adults as well? Where in this resolution does it speak to the importance of physical and/or sexual violence in adolescents, in our adolescents? And where in this resolution does it speak to the harsh parenting and peer bullying that can make our young people vulnerable to mental health problems? So is the government suggesting that by omission from this resolution that these issues are so unimportant that they do not deserve their own focus in this resolution? Keep in mind that they said, and I quote, that the BNYP, in the name of the people of Barbados, and in particular the young people, supports and advocates for the holistic treatment and destigmatization of mental health and the prioritization of mental health. So I am happy that the government has recognized the need to attempt to highlight the issue of mental health reform, and I am elated that the government
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Thank you. And I'm elated to see that the government sees that peer support is the only solution that needs to be addressed in youth. However, I repeat the call for a research-based approach to policy solutions, and it is fine to say that, okay, we need peer support in our youth, but that is only okay after they have reached a certain age. But all the studies on mental health show that by the time children are in their environment to receive peer pressure report, they're already suffering from some type of mental illness.
Your time is up.
Okay, can I have 30 minutes? In closing, Madam Speaker, I think I can speak for my colleagues when I say that we are in agreement with the motion that mental health needs to be prioritized, and that we are in a mental health crisis. And it's only because the opposition cares so deeply about this topic is why I personally do not support this resolution. It is not because I do not think that mental health is not important, but I think it is because it is too important to honestly take this resolution seriously.
Your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. I now recognize the Honorable Member LaShante Sobers.
Madam Speaker, honorable members, good morning. In the words of American physician John Galt, Blacks are immune to mental illness. This invidious statement reflects a society that thrived on Black suffrage and disregarded the emphasis on mental needs. If there was ever any truth to this statement, it would mean that I, a descendant of African slaves, You, Madam Speaker, and you, my honorable members, will never have to encounter mental health or illness issues. No, mental health is not discriminatory. It is not gender specific. Anyone from any walk of life can experience it, and it carries dire consequences. But what exactly is mental health? The World Health Organization defines mental health as, and I quote, a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, realize their abilities, learn well and work well, and contribute to their community. Another study conducted by the World Health Organization stated that globally, 1 in 7 persons aged 10 to 19-year-old experience mental disorders, and suicide is the 4th leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-olds. This is why mental health advocacy is important, as knowledgeable minds can come together to combat this growing issue. This is why this government, through this resolution, would act as a vessel to ensure that Barbadians suffering from mental health issues are catered to and cared for. The National Alliance on Mental Health states that 1 in 5 young people under 18 experience mental health. Right. But many young people are scared to speak up about it due to societal feedback. This is evident in Barbados because many persons look at the psychiatric hospital through a very pessimistic lens. Because of this, they discriminate against those who have been admitted or who are currently admitted to hospital. They label them as mad or stupid. They don't see them as human. They see them as outcasts. And because of this, they fear them. It is time this comes to an end. It is time to put an end to this stigma. Wait. The Barbados Psychiatric Hospital reports
Honorable member,
that
you have 2 minutes remaining.
Okay. That the majority of patients admitted to hospital suffer from bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, or post-traumatic syndrome disorder. However, younger patients from as early as 7 years old usually experience behavioral disorders such as OCD or ADHD. The Barbados Psychiatric Hospital does a great job at giving these children the best care that they need. However, there are little psychiatrists available, which is why the government chooses to award scholarships to students studying psychiatry to aid them with their studies. These scholarships would allow for economic assistance with the universities that they're accepted to, and in the terms of their scholarship, they would have to return to Barbados to work in a mental health institution in order to assist with national development and to increase the psychiatrist to patient ratio.
Honorable member, your time is up.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I oblige to you.
I now recognize the honorable member, Joshua Harris.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker and honorable members of this House. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Words from the late, great Bob Marley. Madam Speaker, my question is, how do we do that? How do we free our minds? Madam Speaker, I'd like to argue that the people of Barbados need resources. And this resolution is inadequate as it does not address the lack of resources available to Barbadians. And before an honorable member from the other side of the floor points to green spaces, let me remind them that Barbados is 432 square kilometers and has a population density of 655.8 people per square kilometer. Therefore, Madam Speaker, since the government would
like to erect green spaces. Let me then urge them not to contradict themselves by trying to take up more space by erecting a slew of senior daycare centers. Let me also remind them that we also have 15 parks in Barbados, including the botanical gardens, and therefore, on average, we have more than one in each parish. So I'd like to urge the honourable members to not take away from the parish independence committees at all in this honourable house. Madam Speaker, since the government would like to utilize space, I urge them to use it wisely. I urge them to use it by implementing something that will make a difference. Use it to implement something that is necessary. Use it to implement community mental health centers, community mental health outposts that will reduce the pressure on the psychiatric hospital. Use it to build more halfway houses that will assist greatly in easier reintegration from our citizens coming out of the psychiatric hospital. We know it is difficult for them. We must help them, Madam Speaker. They said in this resolution they're taking a holistic approach and they want to destigmatize mental health. I commend that. However, Madam Speaker, this is a blanket statement, and they will use it as cover to when we call upon them and call them out on their shortcomings. Madam Speaker, let me get to the specifics and advocate for the minorities in this country. Let me speak to the advocation of destigmatization of disability, which the government neglected in this bill. The fact of the matter is, many of our senior citizens suffer with depression, and many of our disabled citizens suffer with depression also due to the stigma against them. Also, let me point to the retired law enforcement and military individuals, Madam Speaker. Let me point to them.
Honourable member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Of whom 19%, one in five, suffer from PTSD. We must make it easier for them to receive treatment, and dare I say, free of charge. Also, Madam Speaker, we need to sensitize our youth who show some measure of insensitivity when they post on social media. A study carried out by Dr. Sanjay Gupta showed a direct link between social media and the destruction of mental health in our youth, which social media causes severe depression in 7% of them, and anxiety disorder in 20% of them, Madam Speaker. As a youth parliament, we need to combat these things in this bill for it to be effective. I'd like also to ask them about the peer support groups. I want to know if your peers are supporting you, if you're prioritizing that and taking away from the tuition time of your fellow peers. That does not make sense, Madam Speaker. It doesn't make sense. But, Madam Speaker, I will end by using a variation of a quote from President John F. Kennedy in the United States. The cost of freedom is high, but Barbadians have always paid the price. Madam Speaker, it's time that we must make it cheaper for them. We must not take the path of surrender or submission. And actually close now by quoting our Prime Minister, the Honourable Mayor Moore Motley, by saying no retreat, no surrender. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I now acknowledge the Honorable Keneal Leslie.
Madam Speaker, honorable members. Madam Speaker, well, I agree with the notion that adult daycares should be redistributed across the country. But when we don't establish more, how do we fill the gap? St. Michael is the most populated parish on the island. When we move those adult daycares, how do we support the elderly there? According to research done by the World Health Organization, Barbados' elderly population is set to more than double, and there are not nearly enough services to support this demographic shift. Mental health and well-being are just as important in older age as at any other time of life. Approximately 15% of adults aged 60 and over suffer from mental disorders. Mental and neurological disorders among older adults account for 66% of the total disability for this group. Now, an honorable member alluded to the finances. The cost of the services may be expensive. Undertaking the establishment of more facilities, such as adult daycares, may be out of budget. But to support our elderly.
Honorable member, on what point do you rise?
I rise on a point of order because clearly the honorable member on the other side has not listened to my solution. I said that they should conduct surveys so that you can know how to adequately relocate
member,
and...
That is not a point of order. Please sit down.
My bad.
Thank you.
My bad.
Okay.
You will receive a minute.
Thank you. Now, the finances. To support our elderly, it is worth every penny because the benefits of adult daycares are far too great. Mental stimulation, which respect for caregivers, socialization and companionship, supervision and safety, and access to healthcare and therapeutic services, which all serve as preventative measures. And it also moves the burden of the psychiatric hospital and pushes it into the community. Madam Speaker, another member, honorable member, asked, why only the old persons? Now I cannot answer that question because the government in the resolution has stated we address mental health holistically. So I answer why the old persons? And the honorable member has answered it in their own speech.
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Thank you. As the old persons would say, the Edos, in the old time days, ethics from the older generation. If we do not support the older generation and their mental well-being, how would we know of these things? In conclusion, the elderly, great-grandma, great-grandpa, great-auntie, great-uncle, your ever so nosy neighbor who has lived in the same old shadow house for what feels like forever, the custodians of tradition and the pillars of society. Provide them with the services they need and deserve so that they may live in bliss and age with grace. I oblige to you, Madam Speaker.
I now recognize the Honorable Dante Harvey.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I sat here for over the last 2+ hours, 3, being told, and listened to the members on the other side justify the unjustifiable. Madam Speaker, this is a problem, and I personally would have felt more inclined to listen to the other side if they have begun and say, we, the government, have failed our people. Madam Speaker, I can get to the point. Madam Speaker, we are talking about lack of mental health days. I raised the point before in another setting. We have not urged or we have not deployed or asked for the Ministry of Labor, Social Security, and the third sector to be a part of this change. Madam Speaker, unemployment is one of the main causes of poverty in this country. Madam Speaker, cost of living being so high is one of the next forms of poverty in this country. Madam Speaker, the government has failed to outline or to task the following related grades or the following related people. Madam Speaker, the Christian Association of Barbados, the Evangelical Association of Barbados, the Muslim Association, the Interreligious Organization. We're talking about a lack of psychiatrists and psychologists in this country, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, to become a reverend or to become a senior member of the church, we have to study psychiatry. Madam Speaker, if we use our reverence and we move from the notion of separating church and state and bringing back church and state together to help move forward and to help this crisis of mental health in Barbados, we will be on the right trajectory. Madam Speaker, when I listen, I believe in another life I'm called to pastoral ministry, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, mental health is like the story of the sheep, the 99, and we must go back for the one, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, no one in the Bible was tested and tried more than Job, Madam Speaker, and Job had faith as small as a mustard seed in the man of God. Madam Speaker, I know we can't bring the notion of pelting back religious education back into our schools.
I'm sorry to say this, but you have 2 minutes remaining.
Madam Speaker, that is more than enough.
All right.
Madam Speaker, if we go back, we can't bring the notion of pelting back religious education among our youth because of the charters and stuff from the UN, Madam Speaker. But if we include our reverends and our pastors in our communication on mental health, we will be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Madam Speaker, having faith as small as a mustard seed can do wonders to man, woman, child, boy, and girl. Madam Speaker, I can go on about the holy book of the Lord, but I will wrap up and say, Madam Speaker, in the words of a legend, Bob Marley, one love, one heart, let's get together, and it will be all right. Madam Speaker, I'm obliged to you.
I recognize the Honorable Janae Herbert.
Madam Speaker, good morning. Honorable members, good morning. In the words of writer and Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel, the opposite of love is not hate, but much rather indifference. I will go further to say, Madam Speaker, that what we don't do, someone or something else will. Substances hold our women, our men, and our youth at large in a warm embrace because we refuse to. When we do not listen, Madam Speaker, marijuana will. Ecstasy has the empathy that we lack. Our families may not show love, but nicotine will, alcohol will, Molly will. These are concepts that run rampant among our people, that run rampant among our youth. This is our reality, Madam Speaker. This is why I urge not only policymakers, but teachers, parents, students. I urge Barbados to take mental health seriously. Honorable members, the opposite of love may be indifference, but I propose to this honorable chamber that a symptom of love is initiative. May I draw your attention to Section G of the resolution, which speaks to the promotion of already present and active mental health initiatives, as well as the establishment of government-funded initiatives to target men's mental health and provide safe spaces. No, it is no secret, Madam Speaker, that there's a stigma surrounding men's mental health. The American Psychological Association and Gate Counseling Organization project that men are 12% less likely to seek formal mental care. And at the same time, Madam Speaker, as the Honorable Member would have alluded to, men are 4 times as likely to die from suicide. Bearing this in mind, the government seeks to prioritize the implementation and enhancement of initiatives geared toward the destigmatization and support of mental health and men's mental health in particular. Among these initiatives are support groups, clubs, and informative campaigns. Additionally, Madam Speaker, the government seeks to provide jobs not only to treat mental illness, Madam Speaker, but as a tangible solution to preserve mental health. This section of the resolution also speaks to the creation of safe spaces.
Honorable Member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Also speaks to the creation of safe spaces, Madam Speaker. Now, when our people end up as part of the 700,000 annual suicides, one of the first things heard is, no one knew he or she was suffering. No one could tell. If only we knew, Madam Speaker, which is why we need an outlet for our youth. We need to promote and enhance outlets for our youth to speak. The WHO projects that 1 in 5 individuals will be challenged with mental illness in their lifetime. To bring this a bit closer to home, Madam Speaker, there are about 35 individuals seated here today. That would mean that at least 7 of us are either already suffering from mental illness or will in our lifetime. Madam Speaker, I chose to bring this statistic close to home, Madam Speaker, because I think it is important that we recognize that there are real struggles behind statistics, and as the Honorable Member before me would have said, that there are faces that lie behind facts. Madam Speaker, prevention is better than cure. But in a situation such as this, where lives are at stake, where mothers, fathers, sons, daughters are being lost, prevention is our only option. A representative from the psychiatric hospital would have alluded to the fact that anyone with the ability to think, feel, or imagine has the capacity to develop a mental illness. What this means, Madam Speaker, honorable members, is that anyone can be subject to mental illness at any point in time.
Honorable Member.
Thank you. That anyone may be subject to mental illness at any point in time. As I stand here in support of this resolution, I seek to remind you, honorable members, that this resolution is not only for the benefit of those already suffering with mental illness, but for the protection of each and every single Barbadian. And on that note, Madam Speaker, I'm very much appreciative.
I acknowledge and recognize the Honorable Member, Caleb Brathwaite.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise today on a topic that is important to every single person here, and to all residents who call this country home. More importantly, fellow young people. I not only rise as a youth parliamentarian, but as a youth and a community advocate, and who's also the chairman of the Belfast Youth Council. This mental health topic concerns all of you here, all of you. But today we are not here to serve self-agendas, but we are here to ensure that the over 60,000 young people we have in this country have representation on this mental health debate. After all, this is Youth Parliament. Madam Speaker, however, it pains me dearly to say that this resolution the other side has brought before this Honourable House is a slap in the face to those over 60,000 young people we have in this country. I go further to say, it has me so kerfuffled, so discombobulated, it is affecting my mental health now at this very moment. Madam Speaker, my honourable friends have defined mental health, so I need not to go down that road.
But as there are many students among us in this honorable house, you are one yourself, Madam Speaker, and you are able to empathize when I say this. I thought the other side would have saw it necessary to introduce school-based programs for the purposes of educating students on mental health, with a separate and a distinct subject from HFLE, Health and Family Life Education, and must not be curriculum-based. But Madam Speaker, I didn't see that get right about here. Madam Speaker, however, what the other side thinks is best for young people is to implement peer counseling in schools. But you are implementing peer counseling in schools before you teach students about mental health. They are putting the cart before the horse. Madam Speaker, furthermore, where is the clause in this resolution speaking about increasing the uno, and singular guidance counselor we have in secondary schools today to at least 2 in each secondary school and 1 station guidance counselor in each primary school. In addition, I beg your pardon, the implementation of the needed behavior intervention plans for all schools across the island. But Madam Speaker, I didn't see that get right about here. Madam Speaker, there should have been a revenue generation mechanism included in this resolution, or the mention of diverting funding to fund these mental health programs, as mental health should be treated as a priority, and the opposition recognizes that. It must be noted that mental health challenges are akin to non-communicable diseases for which this country is plagued with. But Madam Speaker, I go on. I didn't see it get right about here. Madam Speaker, let me take this time to commend every single person who works in the mental health system in Barbados. Your efforts shall no longer go unnoticed in this country. I wish to commend these hardworking professionals, from the ancillary staff to the security to the nursing assistants to the doctors. We commend you.
Remaining.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, just as you saw, the other side did not hit the desk to commend these hardworking professionals, but they will say, and they will stand up and say that they care about the mental health system. But if they truly cared, they will understand that the nurses located at the Troy Family Center, which is located in the psychiatric hospital, and which is the facility dedicated for helping children get over their mental health challenges, should not need to perform their duties and still struggle to assist with rigorous schoolwork. For various age groups, the provisions for tutors must be put in place, and where vetted give-back students can be sought after in this regard. Madam Speaker, are you aware that the psychiatric hospital does not meet international standards as it relates to the patient-to-nurse ratio? But no plans was mentioned today to combat that. Further, the psychiatric hospital have around 500 patients, when the ideal number at any given time should be around 300 to 400. So therefore, the 60 to 70 community mental health nurses across Barbados must be given additional resources to be able to treat the mental health illnesses from the early and perform any needed educational sensitivity. And this country must move away from institutionalized care being the go-to towards more community care as the way forward. Madam Speaker, resources must be pumped into local, and I stress local, mental health research, and to increase the lone research officer presently employed by the government. Madam Speaker, a greater emphasis must be placed on securing a specialized mental health ambulance once again in quick time, because there's none at the psychiatric hospital. Madam Speaker, I beg that I have additional 2 minutes.
2?
A minute would do then.
A minute.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
I will
Madam
give you 30
Speaker,
seconds.
Thank you very
Please
much.
wrap it up.
Madam
Thank
Speaker,
you.
I can go on and on as this opposition believes that the other side did not have the over 60,000 young people in mind when they wrote this resolution. However, I'll be here for days. Madam Speaker, in closing, I say this. The other side must reel and come again. And when they do, make sure that young people are their focus. Be in touch with the facts, and please, please be in touch with the burdens of the local mental health system in this country. For the lives of these over 60,000 young people we have in this country are at stake. This is Youth Parliament, and we must be working for their interests. With that, Madam Speaker, I'm obliged to you.
I now recognize the Honorable Shakobi Riley.
Thank you for acknowledging me, Madam Speaker. This is Youth Parliament, and we should represent our youth. And I will go with that, and I will say the need for action on mental health is indisputable and urgent. And with that, I will leave out the theatrics. With that, I will get straight down to the meat of the matter. Mental health, yes, we acknowledge from the many repetitive presentations today that it is a problem. We have an issue, we have a crisis. And our resolution seeks to address these crises. And one thing that I will be presenting today is specifically in the resolution C, which is the educational institutions, the implementation of peer support groups should emerge as a valuable approach whereby student volunteers are equipped and trained with training and guidance to assist their fellow schoolmates. Key word there is volunteer. We're not asking, we're not making it mandatory for them to have to sit in a class and with all the other burdens that they have, counsel. That's not what we're asking. We're asking for volunteers. What that means is that people that are willing and interested will come, they will learn what they have to learn about mental health if they're willing, the effects of it, and to learn to be better and effective listeners, to be able to pinpoint certain cues that somebody may need help. That is the first thing that we are looking at here. Secondly, we encourage the establishment and growth of peer support groups chaired by those same individuals who would have been trained. Now, we know what a peer support group is, do we? We can
Honorable
say
member,
that.
on what point do you rise?
Madam Speaker, I rise on a point of order. The honorable member is misleading this House and the people of Barbados because as we know in Barbados, you don't have to be in school if you're over 16 years of age. And in Barbados, you cannot offer mental support because that is medical support unless you're over 18 years of age. So, Madam Speaker, as a professional or a volunteer, so, Madam Speaker, the honorable member is misleading the House and people of Barbados. So I would ask him to retract that statement. Thank you.
I'm going to ask back for my time because, again, we're not dealing with the theatrics in here. This is a serious matter. Now, back to what I was saying. We acknowledge that these things are important. We acknowledge that young people are affected by certain factors, which has been listed here in all the presentations that were presented. And one of those things happened to be poverty as well. And I'm going to give a story right here, right now. You have Dolly, who is living in an extended family in a 2-bedroom house with 3 siblings and only 1 working parent. I'm sure that some of you may have that friend or may know somebody like that, and won't you be willing to help? Don't you wish that you had the skills or the knowledge?
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes remaining, as the fact of the matter is you went on and I did not say whether I was going to give you the extra time or not.
Oh, thank you.
2 minutes remaining.
Thank you very much. I apologize, ma'am.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, my passions. Yes, I'm sure that you wish you was able to offer that help. And that is what we are seeking to do here in this resolution. We have, let me pull it up here real quick. Counseling training services. We got whole life counseling training service. we got Bright Life Family Center, we got Network Service Center. All of these are people that we can employ to help train these individuals. And I'm not talking about hardcore training. I'm talking about, again, being effective listeners to be able to identify certain cues. That's it. Peer support groups now. We have that space in schools. We have space for extracurricular activities, space that can be used so that people that are suffering can get together and have a conversation with a mediator. That is what we're seeking here with this. We are not asking for you to tell your child, oh, well.
Honorable member, your time is up.
Thank you. I'm going to conclude. I conclude by saying, Madam Speaker, colleagues, that, again, the need for action on mental health is indisputable and urgent. And we cannot sit here and have this conversation and pretend that it is not. The solutions have been offered, and I have right here what we plan to do with the information provided in Section C. With that, I conclude.
I now recognize the Honorable Member Giovanna Eiffel to state the closing remarks.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Once again, I am honored. I closed my speech this morning by saying I was hopeful and optimistic about passing the baton on to the members of the government side. And now, as I stand before you, it is not with a heavy heart or an aching heart, but with a heart that is filled with pride. Looking around this room today, I see the future of our nation is in excellent hands. With not just well-researched and always seeking to improve members of this government, but also with the feedback, which is certainly noted from the honorable members of the opposition. But please do not believe that this government does not care about those who have been lost to the hands of mental health challenges, because they will certainly never be out of state or out of mind. I do hope that all the information provided today was well internalized amongst those who would have had the chance to listen. However, to quickly address some of the misconceptions today, I want it to be clear that when we say our resolution's goal is to be as inclusive as possible, we mean it. And that includes persons in Barbados not at all limited by age, gender, race, or anything of the sorts. It must be inclusive in the sense that their profession does not at all matter. Because at the end of the day, we are speaking about the people of Barbados. And regardless of every reason, persons should be included. Today, as I stand here, I say with every single person and with every single initiative which seeks to do that on this resolution is important. Because unlike expressed by some of the members of the opposition, Madam Speaker, this government cares for each and every person behind these solutions and who will benefit from them. This government comes to not just seek improvement, but commend efforts of those who are already working hard. And we say to you, let us indeed share this vision for the future of our Barbados, where each and every Barbadian is mentally healthy and has a safe space to age gracefully, a safe space to express themselves, and a safe space to learn exactly what it means to be mentally healthy. And above all else, a society free of stigma. In the words of the Honorable Prime Minister, Mia Amor Motley, And I
Honorable
quote,
member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Thank you, I shall conclude shortly. In the words of the Honorable Prime Minister of this country, Mia Amor Motley, and I quote, "Give me the vote and let me see, and watch and see." Sorry. End quote. Well, today I'm telling you, put your faith in this resolution, even if it is as small as a mustard seed, and you will see. Today I ask the honorable members on the government side who are wearing their green ribbons in solidarity to show that we support mental health reform by raising their hands with me. This government is one that seeks change and seeks improvement. Where we recognize shortcomings, we fix them. And with that, Madam Speaker, I support this resolution, and I beg that with this, I beg to move the passing of the resolution.
I second that.
The question is for this resolution to be passed. All those in favor say aye. All those against say nay. The ayes have it. This resolution will be passed.
I do ask that we do have a vote to record the nays and yeas on this resolution. And the clerk to record the roll.
Those in favor will say aye, and those against will say no.
Madam Speaker, a divide has been called. As I call the honorable members, those who say nay, those who agree, those who are in favor will say nay, and those who are in favor will say aye. Oh shoot.
Favor will say aye. Okay, no problem. Stand up, stand up. Those who in favor will say aye.
Those who are in favor will say aye.
And those against will say no.
And those who are against will say no.
Start calling the names on the government side.
Okay. Government side. Giovanna Eiffel.
Aye. Yay, sorry.
Tremaine Trotman.
Aye.
Sarah Bishram.
Aye.
Caleb Roach.
Aye.
Narissa McCoray Williams.
Aye.
Ariel Hoyerwood.
Aye.
Trinity Weeks.
Aye.
Janica King.
Aye.
Raymond Small.
Aye.
Tyrell Payne.
Aye.
Kashawn Waldron. Lashante Sobers.
Aye.
Keneal Leslie.
Aye.
Janae Herbert.
Aye.
Jacoby Riley.
Aye.
Opposition. Tyrell Giles.
Nay.
Shaquem Howell.
Nay.
Nathan Simpson,
Abstain.
Maya Spooner, Nathaniel Niles,
Not even if the world is ending, nay.
Tyson Holder,
Nay.
Brianna Hardy,
Nay.
Nikolai Peters,
Nay.
Kaylin Eileen,
Nay.
Abby Tennis, Joshua Harris,
Nay.
Dante Harvey, Caleb Brathwaite, Abigail Johnson. Abstain.
She's absent. She's absent. So she's absent.
She's absent.
Okay. You got phone.
Madam Speaker, as there are 15 ayes and 13 noes, the resolution has been passed.
Madam Speaker, with that, we come to the end of government business for today, and I move the adjournment of this sitting Sunday.
Madam Speaker, I just wish to thank everyone who came out today. The Honorable Liz Thompson, Ambassador. We want to thank the Ministry of Youth, Sport, and Community Empowerment for facilitating this training and this development session and program that we all so benefit from on a yearly basis. And Madam Speaker, as we seek to wrap up, we wish to call to action every single youth organization who is involved in the social practitioner service and the mental health service, so that we can have a comprehensive outlook on how we approach solutions to mental illnesses. We have UNDP, USAID, and lots of other local organizations. We've mentioned Let's Unpack It and the Men's Empowerment Network. And we wish that we just have a comprehensive call to action so that we are not operating in silos as we go forward. But I'm obliged to you, Madam Speaker, and once again, thank you everyone for coming out to support us today.
The question is to adjourn this session and this seating. The question is for this Senate House to be adjourned night. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. The ayes have it. This House is adjourned night. All rise.